however you feel called to do so. Shabbat shalom, hey, Shabbat shalom, hey, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, hey, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, hey, Shabbat shalom, hey, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, bim bam, bim 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 bam, bim 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 bam, chiri biri biri bim bam, bim 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 bam, bim 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 bam.
Shabbat Shalom. It is such a pleasure to be able to be together. And my name is Kavod Weeder, Rabbi Kavod Weeder, and together with Cantor Natalie Young and some different congregants this evening, we will be your guides for our Shabbat experience. And it really, it's really great. And I want to just echo what Cantor Young shared to begin is sing out, join us. It feels a little bit awkward if that's new because you're in your room and your space by yourself. It's not like we're together in one physical space, but there is something that we are sharing and we want us to be together in it. On Shabbat, the sages teach that we have angels of the Most High that are with us, Malachei Hasharet, and we sing Shalom Aleichem, to welcome those angels to be with us. And what does that really mean? In Jewish tradition, angels are not the little cherubs with the wings that flap around and the little halo. That's more Christian iconography. But the way angels or malachim have a very deep and rich tradition in Judaism. That malachim, the word means messengers. An angel is a messenger. It's a messenger. And in fact, the Rambam, Maimonides, 13th century great rabbi and philosopher, even said that when we talk about a messenger, an angel, we're talking about a messenger of consciousness, of awareness. And in fact, we are, each one of us, sending out these messengers all of the time. When we are stressed or frustrated, we send out angels of stress and frustration that come out. And you can know because the people who live with us can feel it right away without even looking at our face. You can feel the tension in a room. When you go into a room and you feel the tension, that's because there are these messengers, these vibes that are coming out. But also when we are loving, when we're open, when we're clear, when we're passionate, we're also sending out those messengers. And those are also those vibes that are coming out. So on Shabbat, we welcome the Malachei HaSharet, the angels of the Most High. What are those deepest expressions of truth, of consciousness that we want to be with us, that we want to send out? What's our best self? What are the kinds of vibes that we are putting out? And so when we sing Shalom Aleichem and we welcome these messengers, they're not messengers from out here, okay? We're adults right now. You know, we don't need to have these cherubs that are flapping around, but the angels are in here. They're in here. And we're saying that as we enter into the presence of Shabbat, we are inviting that dimension of awareness, of connection, of love to emanate out in our space, to be with us. So as we hear, we have a beautiful melody for Shalom Aleichem. Last week we sung together our traditional melody that so much of us are used to. Here you'll hear a new melody. And in this, I really invite you to, if it's not familiar, to receive, to open up. If you want to try to sing along, you can, but mostly see if you can summon and awaken to those angels of the Most High.
This time I'd like to invite Tamara to share a reading with us.
Oh, am I unmuted? Let's make sure.
Yes, you're fine.
Okay, thank you. I begin with a prayer of gratitude for all that is holy in my life. God needs no words, no English or Hebrew, no semantics, and no services, but I need them. Through prayer, I can sense my inner strength, my inner purpose, my inner joy, my capacity to love. As I reach upward in prayer, I sense these qualities in my Creator. To love God is to love each other, to work to make our lives better. To love God is to love the world God created and to work to perfect it. To love God is to love dreams of peace and joy that illumine all of us and to bring that vision to life.
Thank you, Tamara. If you have Shabbat candles, you can get them ready and Tamara will lead us in the lighting of the candles.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen. Beautiful. Thank you. We say, as a greeting on Shabbat, we say Shabbat Shalom, which many of us are aware means Sabbath peace. The word shalom has a different connotation than the word peace. And the word peace sometimes in English can be thought of as tranquility, as something that's calm, like a calm pond. And that's not far away from shalom, but shalom is something a little different. It means whole or complete, whole as in W-H-O-L-E, complete, the word lishalem, to make complete. And that really what peace is about is an experience of completeness. Some of us think that it's the absence of conflict that is what peace is. But as we know from history, the Roman peace, where there were no conflict, but everybody did what the dictator said, was no real sense of peace because multiple voices could not be and expressions were not welcome. So peace, shalom, is wholeness. And in Lecha Dodi, the last verse, we say, Bo'i v'shalom, enter in peace. And we're referring to Shabbat, to this experience of wholeness. And it's even custom that in that last verse that we stand and we face towards our door and we use our imaginative faculties to welcome in not just that sense of peace, but that sense of completeness. What is the opposite of peace? It's that things aren't complete. That things aren't complete, that something else has to get done. When something else isn't complete, we can't be in the moment. We can't embrace the moment fully because we're thinking about the next one where we will make things complete. So on Shabbat, when we are getting ready for Shabbat and we still have a lot of work to do, the sages teach is that when Shabbat comes and the sun sets, even if you haven't finished your work, you act as if it's complete. You let it be finished for the moment. You'll be able to pick it up later, but it's not just that you stop your work, you actually let it be finished. You let the moment be complete in order to enter into Shabbat. So I want to invite us that as we sing Lecha Dodi, as we welcome the Shabbat bride, as we welcome this presence, that with our breath and our singing, we let go of anything that we're still holding on to, that we're still not letting complete. We know that after Shabbat, we will be able to pick it up. There's a lot of work to be done. But for now, the renewal, the rejuvenation is about realizing that in this moment, things are complete.
לך דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה שמור וזכור בדיבורך נשמיענו מיוחד אדוני אחד ושמותך לשם תפארת ולתהילה לך אדוני קרקנה פני שבת נקבלה לך אדוני קרקנה פני שבת נקבלה לקראת שבת לכוונך קים כל הברכה מראש מקדם ועשו הסוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה לך אדוני קרקנה פני שבת נקבלה לך אדוני קרקנה פני שבת נקבלה תתעוררי תתעוררי כי באורך ומאורי אורי אורי שידברי כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה לך אדוני קרקנה פני שבת נקבלה לך אדוני קרקנה פני שבת נקבלה. Let's put our hands together. Yalla yalla yalla
So as we're singing in joy and gratitude, we're also aware that not all of us who are here tonight are feeling joy, but hopefully we're feeling connection. And my heart really goes out right now to Jill Drexler and Larry Drexler, whose father Marvin was buried today, and begins the Shiva period for Jill and her family, her wonderful sisters, and many grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And to you, Jill, and family, and all of those who are here to say Kaddish and are commemorating the loss, we say Hamakom Yenachem Etchem, may the Holy One comfort you, and hope that just like this image of the hands holding around the flame, that you can feel our community holding you in this sacred space. We now will transition to the main body of our service with the Chatzi Kaddish. The Kaddish prayer is not just something that we say as mourners. It's also a prayer that's a transition prayer from one part of a service to another. And at this point, right after the Kaddish prayer, we'll all stand for the Baruch Hu to bless together as a community, as one people, and move into the rest of our service. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה בעגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם ועולמי עולמיה, יתברך, יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה בריחו, לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמא, ואמרו amen. Please stand for the Baruch.
Please be seated. I have been spending so much time by the ocean where I find myself able to recenter. My favorite time of the day to go is as the sun is setting, and I find it absolutely extraordinary how every night is a new painting. Wherever we are tonight, I want to invite you, if you are able, to go see the night sky. Sometimes we need to remind ourselves that we are part of God's great creation, and it's surrounding us always, and even on the darkest night, there is light. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidvaro mariv aravim b'chokhmah poteach she'arim. God of creation, who makes the evening fall from light into darkness with the setting of the sun. You unfold the heavens with brilliant moon and stars and wrap our souls with peace. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidvaro mariv אהבת עולם, בית ישראל, עמך אהבת, עמך אהבת. תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת, אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו, וקומנו נשיח בחוקיך, ונצמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד, כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, ובהם נגה יומם בלילה, נגה יומם בלילה. ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל, אוהב עמו ישראל.
You know, when we say the Shema, the word Shema Lishmoa, meaning hear, it is not just about listen with your eardrums as something that's auditory, but it's hear as in understand, as in I hear you, I get you, I grok this reality is. And so there's this opening, this invitation in this moment to really understand something about the reality of God. Adonai Echad, God is one. And what that actually means, our tradition has lots of different things to say about. In biblical times, it was about that God is one among the many. For some people, God is one, meaning that God is unique. There is nothing else like God. I'm finding more and more that Adonai Echad is expressed as some of our early Hasidic masters express it, which is there is no place empty of God. That God, Adonai Echad, means that everything in creation, every cell in my body, every sound I hear, everything is part of one expression, part of one source, one reality. And that's what we're being asked to hear, to understand, to know that the person next to me, that the earth that I live in is all part of the same divine expression, the same divine image. That is the unity that we're opening to in the Shema. So it's my pleasure to invite Jason Henderson, if you'd unmute yourself, please lead us in the Shema.
Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shem Kavod, Malkut Tov, Leolam Vaed.
Beautiful. Thank you,
Amazing. That
Jason.
was so beautiful. Thank you.
We'll continue. The Shema continues through the section called the Ve'ahavta, where we commit to actualizing that oneness, that unity through love. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'otecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha ve'shinantam levanecha ve'dibarta bam b'shivtecha bebeitecha uv'lektecha b'derech uv'shokbecha uv'kumecha u'kshartam leot al yadecha ve'hayu letotafot bein einecha וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם emet. Steve Blanc, you can lead us in our next reading.
Just as our ancestors stood at the shores of the sea and questioned God, when it seemed all hope was lost, it was though an act of faith that the sea parted and a path forward presented itself. One step at a time, we moved through our narrow places, through these uncertain times, toward hope and redemption. Each day we have a choice to stay stuck and focus on those things that limit and constrict us, or acknowledge our blessings, those daily miracles that fill our lives, that keep us moving forward. May we have strength and fortitude to walk forward with faith and find freedom from our own narrow spaces.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha ne'edar b'kodesh, nora tehilot ha'sefele, nora tehilot ha'sefele. מלכותך ראו בניך בוקי הים לפני משה זה לי ענו ואמרו Adonai Himloch Leolam Vaed Baruch Atah Adonai Gad Yisrael.
Amen.
ברוך אתה אדוני הבורא סוכות שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל ירושלים.
Amen.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ברית עולם ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ וביום השביעי שבת וינפש. אדוני שפתי תפתח אדוני שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך ופי יגיד תהילתך אדוני שפתי תפתח אדוני שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך ופי
the Amidah prayer is really probably one of the oldest prayers in our tradition. When the temple in Jerusalem was destroyed in the 1st century, the rabbis got busy trying to create a form of worship with words instead of animal sacrifices. And in the Mishnah, the early rabbinic text, and then the Talmud, themes for the Amidah, not the exact prayers that we have, but the themes were outlined. A prescription about opening to our ancestors, to the connection that God had with our ancestors and love, God's power for healing, for holiness. Different themes were brought as being essential in these prayers. And then the people who would lead the prayers, the rabbis or others, they would jazz, they would riff, they would improvise, they would do, there wasn't a fixed text, they would do their own prayers on the themes, and it would be different every time. And people were invited also to tap into their own prayers on the themes. It wasn't until the years went on and there wasn't as much literacy within the Jewish community that prayers got prescribed more, the liturgy that we now have today, to touch on these themes. So as we pray our silent Amidah, we'll do the first couple blessings out loud, and then we'll have the opportunity to do them quietly. I invite you to either engage the liturgy as you see it, or to use some of the prompts on the side to open to your own prayer, to do your own improvisation on the theme. Please stand if you're able. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, v'Konei Hakol, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לפני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל, אתה רב להושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם. מחלקל, next slide, מחלקל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש, ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יעללוך סלה. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh. Please take your own silent time with the remaining themes of the Amidah. Next slide, please. With either the words of the liturgy or the general theme for your own prayer.
football unto you, oh God. You let us son imri fi region libi lefanecha Adonai tzuri v'gali.
Shabbat Shalom. What does it mean to hear God's voice? Our weekly Parsha is one of the quintessential moments of the formation of the Jewish people, the experience at Mount Sinai, where the entire community of Israel heard God's voice at once. It's one of those things that also distinguishes the Jewish experience from so many other religious traditions. In many other traditions, it's a single individual that hears God's voice. That is, whether that's a Christ in the desert, whether that's a Buddha under the Bodhi tree, that kind of awakening experience, that opening experience is something that is modeled after an individual. But in Jewish tradition, in Torah, it's not a single individual. It's an entire community that experiences at once. It has a lot to say about what it means to hear God's voice, is that it's relational. It happens through other people. It may be difficult for a lot of us to relate to this idea seriously about the possibility that each one of us can hear God's voice, because we're thinking about it in human voice, in the way that it might be like Charlton Heston, at the giving of the 10 Commandments, or some kind of booming something that we're going to hear talk to us and give us some kind of a message. But the story and our rabbi's approach to the story suggest otherwise. So for me, I want to share with you a personal experience, which was a quintessential, for me, a very clear listening and hearing of God's voice. And it was when I met my wife, Ilana. We were at a sukkah. It was a big community event at the American Jewish University. And I wasn't looking in that moment to meet anybody, but I was there standing with a drink in my hand. It's an open party. And suddenly this woman walks up to me, and I say hello with my big smile, and she smiles back at me, and she says, hold on a second, and she goes to talk to a friend or whatever, and she comes back, and we just start talking. And we're waiting in line for food together, and all of a sudden we're talking, this person that I've just met, immediately talking about the nature of the soul. There's something about our connection, which some of us know as the word besheret, kind of that it was meant to be, but that there's something that is speaking almost the moment that is not just about her and me, but about my life as a whole, about whether you want to say destiny, the next path, that somehow in that moment I knew, without knowing how I knew, it wasn't an intellectual thing. And it was a sense of this person is going to be a big part of my life. And there was a magnetism in that. And, when I reflect on it, when I experience it, and I know that many of you may have had your own experience of this that is similar. Some of us might experience it or use the word intuition to speak about it. But it was that moment, that interaction, That is what I'm offering is God speaking to us. That something beyond what our own understanding comes in and beckons us forward. The revelation of the Torah on Mount Sinai was this quintessential experience of hearing God's voice. And in the Onkelos Aramaic translation of the Sinai experience, he says, Bekol gadol velo pasak. It was a great voice that never stopped. We might think of the story as a moment in history, but the way the rabbis understood it as a great voice that went out and never stopped is that it was a voice that echoes out throughout time and space. Almost like a radio station. You know, we can't see radio waves, we don't hear it, but there are these messages that are going out all the time, surrounding us everywhere. And if we could only figure out how to tune our dial, how to listen, we could hear it. And it's not going to come necessarily, again, in an auditory way, but it can happen in a situation, in an interaction, in many different forms, in something we read. That voice speaks. Let's look a little bit more from the tradition about the conditions and the characteristics of that Sinai experience and how we might find that in our own lives. The great commentator, French commentator Rashi says that the people of Israel camped at the base of the mountain, Ish echad belev echad, as one person with one heart. They were connected. They affirmed their connection to each other. They were open to relationship as one person with one heart. When we are open to connecting with one another, we prioritize this connection above being right. We prioritize the connection above being right. When we're open to connection, it becomes more important for us to learn and share with another than it is to prove our own point of view. The great Sufi poet Rumi said, "Out there beyond right and wrong, there is a field. I'll meet you there." That's where that connection happens. There's no room for God's voice when we're so attached to our perception of being right, of reality, of being right. In that moment that I met Ilana, I came with the desire to connect, to be open, to be available for whatever relationship were to happen in that. And suddenly God's voice was there. Another condition was that Moses instructed the people to set boundaries around the mountain that they couldn't go beyond. These boundaries were the creation of a container for the sacred. Moses knew that if the people were going to hear God's voice, they needed to create a container so that they could receive that voice. And we can create these sacred containers in our lives in all kinds of different ways. It can be a special time or place in our house where we meditate or pray or reflect. It can be how the intention or the presence that we invest upon entering a chapel or a sanctuary. And now that we haven't been able to come together in our chapel or sanctuary at Temple Bethel at the official building, it also can be, how do we orient to our own sacred, our own space when it is time for Shabbat services? It can also be the awareness that listening to someone that we care about can be a holy moment. We don't think about that. A lot of times when we think about religion and religious experience, we think about the shul. We think about rabbis and prayer books and all of this. But what if a moment of listening to somebody else we treated as a holy moment? We treated that conversation with a sense of sanctity and gave our undivided attention. That's also a way we create a container to hear God's voice. It can be a moment when we sit down to study Torah or read or write with a hot cup of tea or coffee. In this first conversation that I had with Ilana, the whole party just disappeared, right? It was just her and I. It was just this container. The Midrash, the commentary, also says that when Israel heard the words spoken from the mouth of the Holy One, their souls left them. As it says in the Song of Songs, my soul departed with his utterance. In the people's normal frame of mind, they could not hear God's voice. Their consciousness needed to depart from the known and the familiar into the unknown. If we want to hear God's voice, we need to be willing to risk. We need to be willing to embark on a path into the unknown. And that's hard for so many of us, because we feel like our sense of safety is around that we control, that we control, and we only stay with what's familiar and known. And yet that cuts us off from so much possibility. We have to be willing to trust that whatever we hear when we open ourselves, when we empty ourselves of the familiar and the known, that we can hear something that is true and right in the unfolding of our life. Being part of the people that stood at Mount Sinai, letting the story of Mount Sinai be an eternal story, not just something that happened in history, means that we're open to God's voice always being broadcast. When we say the blessing over the Torah, we say, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. We say, Noten HaTorah. Blessed are you, God, giver of the Torah. Not the one who gave the Torah, but giver of the Torah. So we're acknowledging, even in that blessing, that Torah is something that is coming through every person, every situation. And it's our obligation and our responsibility to find ways to hear that voice and let it guide our lives. Shabbat Shalom. At this point in our service, we have the opportunity to say a Misha Berach for people in our lives, in our communities, that are suffering from physical illness, from mental illness or addiction. And I invite you to put into the chat the names of people that you'd like to include in our circle of healing. And as we pray for their own refuah shlema, their own complete healing or healing of wholeness, we're also praying for ourselves and the caregivers, that we can be healing presence for the people in our lives.
אבותינו מקור הברכה לאמותינו. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu mekor bracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
We are really excited to begin our 3 sessions, Can We Talk? Building Relationships Through Disagreement, that I'll be leading with Lisa Armoni of the Jewish Federation. We've been working with a planning committee, very diverse political planning committee, to create a program that is really addressing one of our biggest challenges, which is building relationships through disagreement. And what's different about our sessions coming up than we did in the summertime is that I've been working with Resetting the Table, a national organization that helps communities with courageous communication across divides to design this kind of program. And you can see what the goals of the program are on the slide. It should be a very rich 3 sessions. We really ask that you, if you register, that you are able to commit to all 3 sessions. And if not, at least session 1 or session 2, they build upon each other. And our deadline for registration is this Sunday evening. So after that, it will be closed because we have a lot of different breakout groups and things that are really planned based on who is attending. There's already 45 people signed up. It's going to be a really wonderful event. Also, we hope that everybody, whether you are in a small group or not, will join us for our special Oneg period at 5 p.m. Friday, February 12th, to celebrate our relationships and our small group experience. And this year's small group theme was the power of commitment. And so we'll kind of officially wrap up our small group theme and campaign with some of that. And we will have the opportunity to hear from our special guest author, Ron Wolfson, who is the author, as many of you are aware of, Relational Judaism and the Spirituality of Welcoming, among many other books.
So excited to welcome back Cantor Patty Linsky and Neshama Karlbach for our Kol HaNeshama Music Connections, both Sunday afternoons at 5 p.m., one in February, one in March. This is an opportunity for anyone who enjoys music to gather with our choir for some intimate discussion with our guest artists and, of course, lots of music. Hope you can join us for those. And finally, I would like to invite everyone to send me some high resolution photos of some of your favorite moments engaged in community at Temple Beth El. I'd like to work on some new community videos for us, and your highlighted moments are really important. So you can email that to me. You can look for my email on our website. With that, we continue with our service with Aleinu. I invite everyone to please rise.
Aleinu leshabeach ladon hakol, latet gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu kegoye haratzot, velo hosamanu kemishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, vegora leinu kechol hamonam, vanachnu korim, ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. Mourner's Kaddish is a time when we come together to support each other and lift us up, to recall the loved ones who death has recently taken from us. We're in the Shiva period for Marvin Weiss, the father of our member Jill Drexler. We're also our member Phyllis Duhan. Also in the Shloshim period for Rosalind Fells, mother of our member Stuart Fells, Stephen Anshel, brother of our member Helen Lawrence, Lou Einbund, our member and father of our member Karen Gray, and Shirley Premack Banks, the mother of our member Karen Chernin. We're also commemorating the falling yahrzeits. Lowell Adams, Albert Eisenstadt, Saul Binder, Theodore Block, Regina Branawane, Hedwig Breisacker, Harvey Karp, Irene Diamond, Sylvia Dreyer, Howard Doohan, Thelma Fetcher, Blanche Fisher, Bela Bell, Zlata Gerlitsky, Saul Hirschfield, Rosalind Hirsch, Ray Irving, Florence Katz, Esther Kaufman, Ross Klein, Martin Levinson, Eleanor Levine, David Lipton, Saul Labutkin, Howard Manko, Benjamin Marshak, Rita McCarthy, Irene Meisel, Sadie Meltzner, Sam Mitzman, Evelyn Munn, Willie Nathan, William Pollock, Ellen Rankel, Lawrence Rappaport, Alexander Gregory Raskin, Yetta Reich, Ann Roof, Jack Scheinman, Alan Schuster, Lois Schofield, Shirley Sklar, Abraham Skolsky, William Starr, Morris Strasberg, Jean Sullo, Richard Waxler, and Julius Weiss. Please feel free to put in the chat any names of people that you'd like us to include that we did not mention. And you may stand or sit according to your custom for Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shemei Rabbah, ve'alma divrach Yerutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon u'vyomechon u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, b'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam olmei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal Shmei d'kudesha b'rechu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'imru amen. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be for a blessing.
I want to close our service tonight with a ritual. I want to invite you to reflect on a few things this evening. Rabbi Kavod spoke of the sacred relationships that we build, where we can find God when we come together in that field where there's no right, there's no wrong.
May I be safe. May I be free. May I find space to just be. Ken Yiratzon, Ken Yiratzon. May I find my way back home. Ken Yiratzon, Ken Yiratzon. May I find my way back home.
Think for a moment. Someone who has been good to you, someone that has brought you joy, someone you feel deeply connected to, and if you are comfortable sharing that in the chat.
May you be safe. May you be free. May you find space to just be. Ken Yiratzon, Ken Yiratzon. May you find your way back home. Ken Yiratzon, Ken Yiratzon. May you find your way back home.
Hold in your heart someone who you struggle with, someone who makes things just a little more challenging for you. And we bring that sense of peace and wholeness to them tonight.
May you be safe. May you be free. May you find space to just be. Sing with me. Ken yehi ratzon. Ken yehi ratzon. Ken yehi ratzon. May you find your way back home. Ken yehi ratzon. Ken yehi ratzon. May you find your way back home. As we breathed in Shabbat, seeing friends and community members gathered here tonight, we think of all of those blessings, all that is good in this community. And we bring those blessings and elevate them. If you are comfortable sharing that in the chat. May we be safe. May we be free. May we be free. May we find space. May we find space to just be together. Ken yehi ratzon. Ken yehi ratzon. Ken yehi ratzon. May we find our way back home. Ken yehi ratzon. Ken yehi ratzon. May we find our way back home. Ken yehi ratzon. Ken yehi ratzon. May we find our way back home. Ken yehi ratzon. Ken yehi ratzon. May we find our way back home.
Beautiful. If you have a glass of wine and would like to join me in sanctifying this holy moment, please do so. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pari hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho, be'ahava uvratzon himchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit, ki hu yom techila lemikra'e kodesh, zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim. Kivanu v'acharta, ve'otanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodshecha, be'ahava uvratzon, hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Anybody have some challah, some good challah that either you can hold it up? Got some challah there, Shifi?
And Jennifer and Jason.
Jennifer and Jason, excellent.
Beautiful.
Hey, you can join me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz, b'tei avon. Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shalom, y'all.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat
Shabbat shalom.
shalom.
Shabbat shalom.